Here's a flow chart to determine how your suspect that you find in your initial search works its way through the system and ultimately results in a check for you. If you'll notice, step number one is you go out and you use the various ways that we have described in the other videos on how to locate a suspect. Once you do the research, once you confirm all the information that you have, that suspect then becomes a prospect. And then you submit the prospect to your investor through his Property Scout website, through the Property Scout website that you signed up on. The investor then takes a look at it, and if it passes his muster, if he believes that it meets the criteria that we have established, the investor then forwards it on to us. Once we get it, our National Project Manager reviews the project and then accepts it or rejects it. This step right here is where a lot of the deals fall away, because our National Project Manager and our executive team have a very good idea of what we're looking for. But we have been accepting an awful lot of opportunities here lately, so we will typically accept the property. From that point, it goes directly over to the project manager. The project manager will then get in touch with the investor, possibly even with you, to follow up, gather the additional data that we had asked for to make sure that all the assumptions are verified, all the data that we can collect to build the most complete picture we can of the property. And the project manager is going to do a very thorough job of researching it. If he approves, we will go to what's called an LOI, a letter of intent. We'll prepare a letter of intent, submit that to the seller or to the broker to submit to the seller, and then once the LOI has been accepted and approved, we will then turn around and convert that over to an actual formal purchase agreement. That purchase agreement spells out all the details about the acquisition of the property, who's going to be doing what, when, how long we have to do the site inspections, how long we have to raise the funds to close, and what have you. Once we've accepted it and it goes to contract, we will then pass it on down to our due diligence team. That's an outside independent third party that goes out, checks on the property, make sure that everything is as it says. They do both an in-house inspection and a site inspection. Their in-house inspection is where they go and they do as much research as humanly possible through their dozens and dozens of different databases they've accumulated while they're in their office. And then once they've gathered all the documentation, all the information they need on the property, they actually make a site visit, do the physical inspection of the property top to bottom, inside out, do some market research data for the community, take a walk around, have various meetings with the local officials, with brokers on site and things of that nature. Many times the project manager, many times the investor, many times even you as a property scout, integral in the process, will meet the due diligence team on site so that you can provide them as much data as possible. If in fact the vetting process, if the analysis, if all the assumptions are proven to be correct and it still looks like it's a deal, at that point the due diligence team confirms the information, passes that confirmation on to us, creates a massive property data book, and then we set up the closing. Once we close on the property, at that point you will receive, or prior to closing, you will see the document and be asked to sign the document that acknowledges your participation in the entity, in the LLC, in the company that's going to be buying the property. Each property is purchased within its own single asset LLC, limited liability company, and you as Property Scout will be issued a 1% ownership interest in the company buying the property. That's where you're protected. That's where you're assured that your interest will be acknowledged and you'll be paid for your efforts. Once we participate, once we have that closing, we also have in the documents that you will agree to sell and we will agree to buy your ownership interest for a check. We'll get to the we discussed the compensation and how that's calculated on another video, but just know that at the closing, the entity that will be acquiring title to the property will include you as a 1% ownership interest. Following the closing, your membership interest is repurchased by the company itself, and a check will be issued to you for that membership interest. You are required to sell the property. We are required to buy the property. It's a legally binding document both directions, so that's how you know you're going to get paid. But that's the deal flow. It's a 12-step process from very beginning to the very end. It could take as much as 6 months. It could take as little as 6 weeks to go through the system. It all just depends. The better the lead that you submit, the more details you've been able to uncover and provide for us, the faster the system goes. But from start to finish, beginning to end, step by step by step along the way, many of the properties fall out. We're probably looking at a closing on maybe 5% of the ones that are ultimately submitted from the very beginning, which means that if you want to confirm, if you want to maximize the opportunity for you to get a check, the best thing you can do is go out and find as many properties as you can, make sure that they meet our criteria as closely as possible, gather as much information as you can, and submit them. It's a numbers game, but we don't get money, we don't get paid on a deal until we close on it. We don't get a check unless we actually take title to a property. You don't get a check if we don't get a check. So it's in all of our best interest to work together to give you as much training as we possibly can so that you can provide the most information as possible, and then we'll all benefit from it. We'll all profit from the opportunity.